This is my Webley Raider 10. Unfortunately, it is now showing its age and has developed a slow leak, so I'll be changing the seals in the inlet valve. First things, I'll take off the silencer and the scope and then remove the action from the stock. Now to remove the stock. Just note that on this model the rear fixing screw is longer than the front screw. Okay, and there's a bush also that drops out. You just saw it come forward then. Now, since the wife is away, I'm free to store all my parts I'm taking off the gun in cereal bowls, which would get me skinned alive if she was here. The pressure gauge is reading 0. It is down at the end of its travel there, but if you are working on guns, never rely on the pressure gauge. Always satisfy yourself that the cylinder here is absolutely empty before you start work. I'm going to remove the bolt handle next, and this will improve visibility for the camera to see into the firing valve. There it is, the little brass sleeve there and the bolt handle. Whilst we're on this, I will say, when you're replacing the bolt back into the slide here, the slide is made of aluminium, and I've found out the hard way when the repair was done on this gun earlier and the slide threads were stripped by somebody a bit heavy-handed, over tightening the bolt. So be wary, and if you're in any doubt, don't over tighten. You can always use a spot of blue Loctite on there. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'll just put those into my cereal bowl. Let's see if we can get a decent shot inside to the firing valve. Before starting work on the gun, ensure that the cylinder is absolutely empty. The best way to achieve this is to continuously dry fire the gun until the gauge is reading empty, but then depress the firing valve manually using a plastic rod or wooden stick to ensure that the valve, you can completely depress the valve pin there and no air remains. So I can depress the valve now, and I know that the gun is empty and it's safe to work on it. First thing to do is remove the fill port dust plug. If you forget to do that, you'll struggle to get the inlet valve out. Then a 3mm now the barrel band will just come free, and there's the O-ring from inside it. Put that back for a second. We'll be changing that as part of the kit. But there it is with the O-ring. Now take out 3 4mm cap head bolts that are spaced equidistant around the end of the cylinder here. Sorry about the lighting, I'm working in pretty dark conditions and it's hard to get you close, get the camera close there and maintain a bit of light on the subject. That's all the bolts removed, so we should be free now to be able to ease the inlet valve assembly out of the end of the air cylinder. So it's a little bit tight to get it moving, but with a little bit of back and forth twisting you will eventually get it started. Note that there is no O-ring fitted in that groove at the end, don't be confused on that when you're reassembling. And there's the inlet valve removed. We will obviously be changing that large O-ring there. And there on the end we'll be opening the valve here, removing this circlip and extracting the inlet valve to replace the seals in there. Okay, here with a pair of circlip pliers. If you haven't got these, then a pair of needle nose pliers will generally suffice. So taking that out, and you could see the valve assembly coming forward then under pressure, so be aware that it could spring out on you. Okay, and there's the piston of the inlet valve here. Now, see if that will come out using a pair of plastic. I don't want to do any damage to anything. A pair of plastic tweezers. And there it is. Hopefully I'm just getting you a slightly better view there, down into the inlet valve. And you can see the seat for the valve there, that the O-ring on the end of that piston is going to seal against, and it does look quite rough, so I'll be giving that a good clean, and then I'll be going in there with a bit of metal polish just to smooth out that surface as best I can, and hopefully make the O-ring that I'm going to be replacing last a little bit longer. And there's the piston and the O-ring, and I'll just be giving that a clean up, changing the O-ring. On all the O-rings I'll be giving the O-rings a smear of moly coat before the reassembly. This is the Auto Sol metal polish, which I've used for years. I've used it to polish the valve seat where the O-ring on the end of that piston will seal against. Now let me see if I can get the light round and give you a better view inside, and you can see now that that is nice and clean, smooth, and I'm hopeful that that will do a reasonable job of sealing. Here's the bit of more of a close-up of the inlet valve body. It's a big chunk of metal here, surprisingly agricultural in its nature. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It is what it is. It's not an elegant solution, shall we say. It's a very simple solution to the problem of making an inlet valve. It looks, it really does look like something that could have originated from a tractor. But hey, if it does the job, that's the main thing. I've seen elsewhere where people have had problems with shredding the fill adapter, the fill probe seals. Well, the replacement seals I've got are polyurethane seals, so they're tougher than the nitrile N70 seals anyway. But I'm looking at this one now just before I do any more to it, because I want to make sure that it does look smooth, and it is nicely chamfered, so on both sides, so I'm happy that the seals on the probe aren't going to get shredded. I got my kit of O-rings from O-Ring Sporting, so that's o-ring-sporting.com. Okay, they supplied a simple bag of seals and a template for you to then go through and identify the seals that you're going to fit. Now the numbering, for example, down at the bottom there we've got an N2305 and it's an N70 nitrile seal. Now these reference numbers can be found on the diagram. O-Ring Sporting referred me to the American Hatsan website because the Hatsan AT44 is based on the Raider. So those reference numbers refer to the Hatsan AT44 diagram, and that's available from hatsanusa.com. Okay, so I just point that out. The other thing I'll point out is that the first of these seals I was going to fit is this one, the 2304, which is the small seal that goes on the piston. And I sat because I didn't want to be trying to sort through a pile of O-rings, I sat down one evening and went through them and bagged them individually and numbered them to make life easier for me, I thought. However, the first one I came to use, 2304, didn't look as thick as that original ring, and I realised that I'd confused it in my sorting with it would be that one, 2609, which is the 5.5 caliber breech seal O-ring. So hey presto, the first seal I go to change and I'd actually got it wrong. So my advice would be, as you take your seals off, always compare them with the replacement seal and carefully, and just make sure that you have got a like for like size and O-ring diameter, material thickness in other words, the same, because I'd initially got that wrong and I could see it looked like the cross-sectional area of the O-ring was a smaller diameter, and I checked through all the seals again and realised it could only be this one that I'd misidentified as a breech seal. I'll now fit those seals and get the I'll be taking each seal and applying a little bit of Molykote silicone grease to it, just to aid reassembly and make sure that the seals are all going to move properly in place when they're back in situ. Just to clarify the operation of this valve, the inlet valve, fill probe goes in there, there's a central hole bored through, so air from your dive tank flows through there, pushes the piston back, air flows through this hole in the end of the cap there into the cylinder. The spring is only needed to keep the valve closed when there's no air pressure in the or tiny amount of air in the cylinder. Once there's a few bar into the cylinder, that pressure is going to be pushing on the back of the piston there, driving the O-ring into the seat and sealing it. So as the cylinder pressure increases to its maximum of 200 bar, you've got 200 bar appearing at the back of the piston, driving it very hard into the seat. So the higher the cylinder pressure, hopefully the tighter the seal becomes. Right, here's the inlet valve all reassembled, ready to go back in the gun. So I'll put it aside with all the other fittings from that end of the cylinder and barrel, so that's all ready to go back in once I've serviced the firing valve. Whilst I'm at it then, I'm just going to replace the seal in the barrel band, and that's part number 2603. The part numbers, it's working at the moment, but I can see substantial changes and differences between the AT44 and this Raider 10. But hey, it seems to be working for me at the moment. So I'll pop all of those now away safely, so everything from that end of the rifle is now going to be stored there. And I'll put that aside for now. Right, next to remove the pellet probe assembly at the top here, there's a 2.5mm Allen key screw there, and another one here. There's the first one, and if I can move the gun one-handed, I'll get the second, and there's the second. Now we've got the pellet probe assembly removed from the cylinder. Just note that the top O-ring, that O-ring in there, there's the transfer port I'm pointing to now, and the top O-ring is lodged in there, and there's the brass transfer port. There'll be another O-ring on the other end of that. I'll be replacing both of those obviously too. And then all looks a bit over-oiled and over-greased in here, but I'll be taking the barrel out and giving the barrel a good clean as well whilst we've got the gun apart, and it's easy. I might even do a bit of a polish on the inside of the barrel. I'm just going to put a sticky label on the bottom of the barrel there. Just in case I have any difficulty lining it up again, I'm going to put the barrel back in exactly as I took it out, because it will rotate in once I've slackened these two retaining screws. They're 2mm grub screws in there. I've already slackened these, so okay, and now the barrel should be free to come out. Yeah. Sorry, I got myself in front of the camera then, but hey. And in there, don't know whether we'd better make it out or not. So we've got the breech seal just in there if we can make it out. And we've got these two O-rings on the outside of the barrel as well to change. And then I'll be giving it a good clean once I've got that breech seal out. The way to remove the O-ring is to use a pin and pierce into the side of the O-ring and flick it forward. And now you can loop it in and pull it out. The only thing to say is be extremely careful when you do this with the pin that you don't go in right through the O-ring and scratch the surface that the O-ring is mating onto in the barrel there. So there's the O-ring out, and I'll give the barrel a damn good clean now, because looking down the barrel I can see that there's so much debris in the barrel. So that's not just lead fouling, that's particles sitting on surface inside the barrel. So I'll give that a good clean now, and then we'll be removing both of these O-rings as well. I'll try the spudger, but otherwise I'll just be piercing with the pin and levering them up and out. I think I'll go for the pin method. I didn't have any issues with this pellet pusher assembly, so the pellet probe, so I don't feel any need to strip this completely. So I'm just tucking a piece of cloth in there, going to bring the probe over and give the end of the probe a good polish all around, just to make sure that that there is no ring around the probe, because that surface there is where it's going to mate up with the new breech seal. So the last thing I want to do is have dirt on there and start damaging the seal straight away. So that's polished okay. Off camera I've put a 4.5 polishing mop down inside the barrel there, in the breech end of the barrel, and polished it down about 30 millimeters with a little bit of auto sol metal polish as the cutting compound. And the objective there is just to make sure that the inside, where that transfer port enters the barrel on the inside, you can sometimes get a burr transferred to the inside. And also you've got the rifling starting just here, and I just want the first edge of that rifling, the lead-in, to be polished as well, and make sure there's no burrs on that, because otherwise as you probe a new pellet into the barrel there, the head of the pellet can get slightly damaged, and that can lead to inaccuracy obviously downrange. So whilst it's out, I've taken the trouble to do that. I've also pulled through numerous patches to make sure that the barrel is perfectly clean. I didn't do the full barrel polish. This gun has never been a tack driver, and I don't think it's ever going to be a tack driver. It's not a regulated PCP, so that's stacked against it straight away. But I think I've taken all reasonable precautions there to make sure that I've got it as clean as I possibly can, and to avoid any damage to pellets as they're fed into the breech. Okay, here's the new breech seal, 2609, and this is they're all called 2609 of course. This is the 4.5 or 177 caliber. The kit also supplied the 5.5 and 6.5. Now, getting it into the internal groove in the breech there can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to try just folding it up a little bit and seeing if it will go in, pinching it in half basically. A bit fiddly to do, especially trying to work on camera. But now I'll just see if it will pop into the seat. No, it hasn't. Okay. Another thing I can do is, from the muzzle end, insert a 4mm fiberglass rod. You can obtain these lengths of 4mm fiberglass rod like so. These can be obtained from curtain shops because they're used for curtain rail for net curtains. So I'm going to pop that in there. The other end, I'll see it come up through the transfer porthole, hopefully. So I'll know it's there just behind the just behind the seal. Okay, here's that rod. It's now come right through, and that is a stellar tip for you there. Get yourself a length of 4mm fiberglass curtain rod. It costs peanuts. I think it was about £4 for a 3 metre length, and you can make any number of pull-throughs, polishing mops, etc. from it. So, using that rod to push from the other side, I could see the seal pop into its groove. So I now know that that is perfectly seated. Next thing to do is I'll put on the 2609 outer breech seals. Before we do that, let's just talk through what's happening. Air from the cylinder passes up through the brass transfer port, which is a drilled nipple with 2 O-rings either end, and then travels down through this hole here, which is the transfer port into the barrel. Now, around that area here inside the barrel, you have got the probe has come forward, pushed a pellet in. The pellet skirt is sitting around that line there. It's just past the transfer port, and the end of the probe is now mated against the breech seal, so air can't come back that direction. When the gun is fired, the air will transfer down there. It can't escape either end because these 2 new O-rings will be in place. So that's a bit of a messy explanation, but I hope you understand now. That was key also on the inside. You very often can get a burr on the inside of the breech where the transfer port has been drilled through. So another good reason to put a polishing mop in and take away any micro burrs from the inside. Right, I'll get those other 2 seals back on, and then it will be time to put the barrel back in. Okay, just fitting that second seal there straight into the groove. Make sure before you're refitting that look inside there. I've given that a clean as well. Make sure that those 2 grub screws that hold the barrel in are well backed out, and check the inside again for any burrs. On this one I found it was slightly burred on this the inside from that screw where that had been drilled through. It left a bit of a burr. Obviously you've got to avoid any burrs because you don't want to damage these new O-rings as you put it into the barrel. Before I fit it, I need to take out the that old O-ring from the transfer port. There it comes. So I've got 2 of those to refit now, one on either end of the brass nipple. I'll just give a clean there and refit that transfer port seal. I'll find those in a second. Okay, here's the new O-ring. I've just smeared a little bit of molly on it, and it's part number 2402. So there's 2 of these. One goes in on this end of the transfer port. That one's in there ready, and here's the brass transfer port here. If I pull that out, there'll be another one on that end which has just conveniently fallen out. I'll give the transfer port a clean, and then we'll put the other new seal in. Okay, here's the seal with some Molykote silicone grease ready. Popping that over the end. I can't emphasise enough the importance of making sure you clean everything when replacing seals. That's back in ready. Okay, time to put the barrel back in now. Now the barrel, the transfer port with the barrel has to line up perfectly in the centre of that transfer port there. If you've got the barrel rotated slightly, then you obviously are restricting the opening of the transfer port, and it will reduce the power available to the gun. Okay, I'm trying to give you the best view I can of the transfer port alignment. So you can see it's absolutely in the centre of the aperture there. So when I fit the brass transfer port back in, we know that we'll get the full opening of the transfer port, and it won't be partially obscured. Right, now to start work on the firing valve. So first of all, note that there is a witness mark just here. Rotate it, unscrew the cylinder, remove the cylinder from the rest of the action. These 2.5mm grub screws. So that's the first half of the inlet valve. Okay, so that half, in fact, I don't need to remove. I can just clean it in situ. There's the end of the hammer that you can see at the end there. Yeah, so I think just a good clean of that end of the valve is all I need. And all the real work is going to take place here in this firing valve. This nylon bush here holds the end of the spring that is providing the closing force for the firing valve. Of course, once the gun is pressurised, it'll actually have cylinder air pressure on the back of the valve, driving it closed. I couldn't see an easy way that this comes out. I thought it might unscrew, but it seems to be a press fit. So I know this is rough and ready, but what I've done is I'm going to try and twist it out, and you can see it is coming out. It's burring it up a bit, but again it's out. There's the spring that flew as well, so luckily we didn't lose that. What can I say? Could do better on the manufacturing, I would suggest. Instead of that being a press fit, machining of a thread there and having that threaded would have been vastly superior, but hey. So now I should better push out the valve stem itself. Yeah, and now comes the valve stem itself. I can't tell whether there's a PTFE valve seat in there. I think that's what I can just see. I think. Try and get with the. Yeah, down at the bottom there is a white PTFE valve seat. Now, I haven't got one of those supplied in the kit, so it's a bit of a moot point. That's going to have to stay. What I can do is give it a good clean the valve stem, change that tiny O-ring there. But I'll give this all a good clean and polish and reassemble with new O-ring there, there. Back in the gun. That's all I can do with it. So the O-ring to go on the firing valve stem is 2313. There's the old one. I'll just put that one to one side and pick up this tiny little O-ring. Bit of moly coat. There that is in place. Next to replace the internals and then the external seals and then back together. There it is, back in position. The spring, that's only necessary to close the valve when the cylinder is absolutely completely empty. And now I'm going to have to tap, find if I can line that up and then tap it home, I think is the answer on that one. I think it's a bit of a shame not finishing this off quite as well as they could have done. Okay, a bit of brute force and ignorance. I've tapped it back in on a wooden surface, so that's sitting back there now. Just checking the valve is moving freely. Changing these 3 O-rings now, and then I'll be putting it back together. Whilst I was struggling to remove these very tight O-rings here, because they've gone hard and they're old, I remembered I bought a set of these metal spudgers from Typo. I know, shock horror. I think I could get blackballed for admitting something like that. Anyway, there they are, all different ends on them, and this one's, it's smooth, it's not going to scratch anything, but it enabled me to get in and lever it up. So for what it's worth, I'd actually say that for once I've got something that's worthwhile from Temu. Right. The other thing to note is the larger of the O-ring at this end, which is 2316, there's 2 grooves but only one fitted. That was out of the factory. In the kit supplied, I actually got 2 of those 2316 supplied, so I think I'll fit both of them into that groove, double my chances of a seal there. And that other one is 2318, so I'll go ahead, lever those out and fit the new ones, as always just giving them all a smear of moly coat. Right, well, this is where I've run into problems with this O-ring sporting kit, in that the supplied 2319 is a mil undersize OD. Yeah, it's definitely undersize, and 2316 is a good 2 mils oversize. So I don't know what to do there. I don't think it will. So you see how I've just lined up that edge. You see how much larger the supplied seal is for the 2316, and on 2319 it's a mil undersize. Very disappointing when you've got the thing in bits. Now I'm stuck trying to think whether to refit the old seals. I don't think I've got any seals that will do, so I'm a bit stuck. Now, off camera I just put the inlet valve back in, and I'll now fit the 3 cap head bolts that secure it. Okay, I'll nip those up tight. Okay, now I'm going to tap through these 2 pins and remove the trigger block. I already started one off camera and realised the camera wasn't running. Okay, I'll have to give that second one, it's just being difficult, so I'll have to give it a tap. Right, I've been out and got the right tool for the job. A little pin punch, going rusty like everything I own. The joys of living at the seaside. Right, so I've given it a tap to start it, and it now should just drift through. I've got to hold the end cap in, otherwise the hammer spring will just eject it all. Okay, out comes the trigger unit. There we are. Okay, now comes the end cap. Hammer spring. The hammer should just drop free, yeah. And out comes the hammer. I'll give these a clean and re-grease them. I think and I'll also clean inside the hammer tube, because it does seem to be an awful lot of grease in there. Okay, I'm going to take out the bolt slide next. It's feeling quite stiff there, so it should run easier than that. The slide itself has got 3 nylon ball bearings around the outside edge. I think it's 3, and that enables it to run smoothly, but that doesn't seem to be running particularly smoothly, so I'll take it out and have a look and apply a light film of grease and put it back in. There's a couple of those nylon balls there. There's another one there just appearing, and presumably there should be 2. No. Okay, I'll look at that a bit more carefully, and I'll give it a clean inside the action tube. Hammer spring, if you've got a weak hammer spring, this one was only shooting just over 10 foot-pounds. If you've got a weak spring, I'll just point out also there's a washer sitting on the end of that spring. You can get a spring guide that will fit inside the spring at this end. It'll act as a spring guide to stop the spring distorting as it compresses, but also they come with the equivalent of multiple washers on the end, so you can boost your muzzle energy up towards the 12 foot-pounds UK legal limit. But if you do adjust it, then be very careful about running your gun over a chronograph to establish exactly what the muzzle energy is. Now, down inside the hammer, at the end of the hammer, there's a grub screw with a 5mm Allen key that can be accessed down the end of the gun into the hammer to adjust it. But only do that if you are then going to very carefully run the gun over a chronograph. Right, I've applied some grease, not too liberally, and I do know that, you know, a lot of people run their hammers dry or just with some graphite or molybdenum sulfide powder in there, but I've put some molybdenum sulfide moly grease in there, and I do accept that, you know, in the winter it will vary with the power output will vary a little bit, but you know, this gun's varying over the shot cycle anyway, over the shot string rather, over the fill of the cylinder anyway, so no great problem there. Right, I've slid the bolt slide and hammer assembly back into the hammer tube here, and I've just been careful to make sure that I've got the threaded socket to take the bolt lined up with that slot. So with the bolt, I'm remembering that brass bush that fits over the Allen head bolt. Here's the bolt handle rather. And remembering my earlier warning about not over tightening this bolt, because that's aluminium. The bolt slide is made out of aluminium, and it's very easy to strip the threads. Now I can just test the smoothness. It's definitely running smoother than it was. Okay. Here where the pellet probe engages and where the trigger holds the hammer back, I'll make sure to get plenty of moly grease in there. I've already put some in, but I'll add a bit more. And play it in now and just get the orientation right. It's orientated like that, and we'll need to put the trigger assembly in, but first of all I'll just lubricate the trigger assembly. Okay, now we're ready to put the trigger assembly back in. Okay, that's there. Now it's a question of lining up the holes and drifting the pins in to hold the trigger unit in place. Okay, I can see right through that one, so that should be okay to give it a tap. I can see that's lined up as well. I've got the pins. Yeah, the pins are evenly aligned. Now I'll just check for operation of the hammer. Okay, hammer is now latching okay. So next thing is, when we're reassembling, is just to line up the pellet probe. Cap head bolt goes into that groove there. There's a transfer port that I've been storing in the pellet probe assembly. I'll just move that over now into the I've now put the transfer port back in, and now, as I was saying, we need to, when we put it back together, we need to make sure that that cap head bolt engages in that slot, so the pellet probe is operated and linked to the bolt, it's actually the bolt slide, so it's linked to the bolt slide. Let's make the two parts together now. Right, now I think I've got them aligned. We'll soon know when we put it back together. So, yeah, and you can see the pellet probe is now linked to the bolt slide. Okay, so just a question of getting those couple of screws back in now. We'll do the one at the rear first. Goes down, and we need to just press in when we're doing that one. We'll just need to press in the end cap so that the screw can go on down through. So that's the one for there. I'm just going to refit the barrel band, and I've already put in the new O-ring there. Now it does occur to me though that this barrel could be free floating. You know, it's a big strong barrel, it's a bull barrel, so some of the accuracy issues I've had in the past could be down to the fact that the barrel is damped at the end by that which completely stops movement at the end of the barrel there. So I think when I'm at the range again I will maybe just try that and just see if indeed taking that barrel band off, or at least taking the O-ring out, so that the barrel floats inside the barrel band but not touching the O-ring, not touching rather, and see if that improves the accuracy somewhat. Okay, well that's it all back together. If you've made it this far through all the rambling, well done, and I hope your service goes well, and I'll get the Raider back into the stock now. It's too late for testing today, and I'll get it over the chrono and see that it is still within legal limits, and it's good to go. Hopefully no leaks this time. Now, having persistent slow leak is quite frustrating. Whenever you get the gun out, it's never charged and always needs topping up. Hopefully now though, this is it and it'll be fixed. As I see it there, I'll put the pellet probe back in, and yeah, thanks for watching, bye for now.